Me and you have talked about this, I feel like, for the past 6 months. We got a report today from Mark Stein
Mhm.
that the Detroit Pistons aren't looking to give contract extensions right now to Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. So I wanted to ask you this question. What do you think the positives and negatives are from not extending them right now?
Yeah, so the franchise is in peril. The sky is falling. No, I the no, obviously. So like I think it's a calculated risk that the Pistons are taking because on one hand, there's not a whole lot of pressure to sign either of them right now from the standpoint that there is restricted free agency next summer. And if this summer was an indication of where restricted free agency is, it could be difficult for Ivy or Duren to generate a significant market. Now, the risk anytime you let a player go into restricted free agency or not sign him or lock him up before the season starts is they can potentially go out, play a really good season, and be worth more than what you could have paid them before. I think one of the prime examples of the not signing him when you could or not getting him cheap when you could is like the Jalen Brunson contract
Mhm.
where Dallas could have signed him to I think it was like something ridiculous like 4 years $51 million, and I think he was ready to sign it, like he wanted to sign it, and they're like, no, we're gonna wait, and he played himself into like double or triple the money. And I don't think that's what's going to happen here because both Ivy and Duren are, like highly respected or highly, like touted like prospects. I think it makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, for both players from the standpoint of with Jaden Ivey, unfortunately, especially with the injury news that we got this week, I think it's just really difficult to project and put together an offer that both sides would be happy with because I'm sure the Pistons would still be fine with bringing him in on a team friendly deal. But from what we're hearing, Ivy's camp, like they're not looking for that. Like they're looking for something like they want to be taken care of, and which I understand. And they believe that there's going to be a pretty good market for him next summer if he hits restricted free agency and if he comes out and plays well, which I definitely understand why you'd think that way. And I think for Jalen Duren, quite frankly, I think it's good for him to have the motivation. I mean, when a guy has admitted that he came out last season, and again, these are not my words, these are his words, on some soft shit. Like when a player says he comes out and was soft to start a year, I don't think it's a bad thing for a player to have something like that as motivation. I don't think it's a
Mhm.
bad thing for them to know that their future's in their hands and that they can go out and play really well. Now, in the past, we've seen those years be really deceiving. We've seen guys like DeAndre Ayton have really good years and contract years and then just not live up to that contract once they get paid. I don't think Jalen Duren is a DeAndre Ayton, so I'm not really concerned about it from that standpoint. It's kind of like it's the philosophy of like in football, it's like, oh, you want to pay your guys as early as possible. Pay your guys as early as possible. It's a little different in basketball from the standpoint of there is that restricted free agency market. So overall, especially in this current NBA salary cap world, I think this makes a lot of sense. I still think that there's a really strong chance that the Pistons get extensions done at the very least with Jalen Duren, next summer. And like this does not mean, despite what certain aggregate accounts might suggest, that they are not going to get extensions ever. It just means that they're not getting extensions right now. And so, is it a risk? Yes. Is it a calculated one? Also, yes.
Yeah, I think the way it was worded, people kind of were like, "Oh, the Pistons aren't going to re-sign Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. They're just going to let them walk
Yep.
this summer." That's not really what the reporting was from Mark Stein. Mark Stein just said Trajan Langdon and the Pistons brass have had conversations with them, and they need more time to evaluate. And that has been really, it's been a word that Trajan has said in multiple press conferences
Yep.
is evaluation. Because I think some people, when they look at a Jaden Ivey, they look at a Jalen Duren. I honestly believe that Trajan needs a little bit more evidence before he's really going to commit long-term dollars to either of these players. And I can respect that because Trajan didn't draft Jaden Ivey, didn't draft Jalen Duren. He just needs a little bit more time. And I don't really think that's a really big thing that I have an issue with because it might cost you, more dollars. It might. I mean, that report from Mark Stein, I don't know if you read it.
I'm
Jalen
reading it
Duren,
right now.
Jalen Duren's camp was asking for $30 million a year.
North of $30 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, what, 5 for 150? I mean, that's kind of up there.
He wants
It's kinda
more.
up there. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, more power to him. And if he comes out and he has a productive season and he's giving you like a good, like, let's just say he gives you 15 and 13 and a couple of blocks a game and his free throw percentage go back up, like, yeah, you could have those conversations. And, he's 21. He's going to be 22. I believe in a month or so. I mean, you're not so much you're investing in his long-term future because he's still young. You shouldn't get scared by the over $100 million because if he keeps developing, he keeps getting better, then the contract will age very gracefully, in my opinion.
It would. But I'm
but
sorry, just really quick.
yeah,
And 30 million a year. I looked it up like for like center contracts, highest paid contracts. That'd put him just south of Bam Adebayo. Like
okay.
that'd put him above Isaiah Hartenstein, that'd put him above Miles Turner, Naz Reid, Nick Claxton. So not to say that like I don't think he can reach that level because I absolutely think he can, but with money comes expectations.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought that was, just to put perspective of where that would put him in the hierarchy of centers as far as salary goes.
No, I think you added a lot of context to the conversation. And I think, when you're talking about the top 8 centers in the league, you have to bring those guys up. Obviously, you mentioned, first 25 games of the season, he called himself out at the podium when you guys were asking him questions. And he said, yeah, I was on some soft shit. I haven't been playing up to the standard that I need to play. I honestly think, though, Trajan has spoke very highly of both of these guys. It sounds like internally they want to keep as much of the young talent as they have. And I think he's just scratching the surface. I really do, Sean. I think there's a lot in there. I think there's a mid-range jump shot in there. I think defensively, I think he's making more of an effort to be alert in terms of protecting the rim. And I think JB and the coaching staff, talks to him every day of like how good he possibly could be. I mean, you mentioned Bam Adebayo. I mean, who's to say he can't be a similar type of player?
Absolutely.
We talked about Cade Cunningham being in good condition. I was watching Jalen Duren in the preseason. I mean, he was kind of running up the court very gracefully out there. He looked like he's in really good shape. And, going into a contract year, that's going to motivate you to go out and try your hardest each and every night. So, I mean, more power to him if he wants north of $30 million. He just has to go out there and prove it. And I think that it will put a chip on his shoulder to try to go out, be productive, and, try to get that next big boy contract.
Yeah. And I still think like if we were to put percentages on it, as far as like likelihood, I think there's still like a 99% chance that Jalen Duren is extended and is a Detroit Piston. Unless Cade Cunningham just suddenly doesn't like throwing him lobs anymore, which they were the league leading lob duo last year. Like I just don't see that being a thing. And so those two are just so good together in the pick and roll. And like you said, there's just so many different areas that Jalen Duren can expand his game. It's just the other element of this as well is when you talk about the flexibility, we keep throwing around that buzzword. What that really means is, let's say by the trade deadline or later this season, whatever decisions Detroit wants to make from a salary standpoint, you can't just think about your salary, especially if you're trying to acquire like an all-star caliber player who has like multiple years left on a contract. You can't just factor in your current salary cap. You have to factor in your future salary caps as well.
Yeah.
And so, it's a lot harder to make those moves if you already have like an additional 60 or 70 million per year tied up in salary, which you very well could have with both an Ivy and Duren. So I'd put I'd put Duren at like a 99%. And I don't want to like put like any speculation or anything out there. Like this isn't reported. This is just my gut feeling to me. Like with Ivy, like it really is just a 50-50 at this point. It could go either way. And the reality has been and will continue to be, unless any of these, like conversations are qualmed or he's really penned for long term, he has always been the most logical trade chip if Detroit were to ever go make a significant move. He's always been the most logical centerpiece of that type of move, especially with Detroit's lack of significant salary capital, or significant like draft picks and capital in that respect.
Yeah, I think in terms of Jaden Ivey, the conversation is completely different.
Yep.
Just for the fact that there's been injuries, there's been weird situations with head coaches that didn't play him where,
yeah, there's been Monty Williams.
Yeah, I mean, if he would have played there in the Monty year, we probably have a little bit more concrete evidence in terms of, can this backcourt work? Should I lock him down or should I look to trade him? I think with Jaden Ivey and his camp and what they want, I would be probably telling you like it's probably around 28 to 32 mil, like around that range. I honestly think that if there was a deal this summer for him to take that was below that, probably says no, because there's no point of him signing that. Like he's betting on himself. The injury news is just bad timing, bad luck, in my opinion. It sucks. Because in the back of Pistons fans' mind, and I'm sure you've seen this, we've even had people in the live chat talk about possibly trading Jaden Ivey. People mentioned we were better without him last year, which, I mean, if you add context of the situation, you can go down that rabbit hole. Sark can get his minutes restriction lifted until Jaden Ivey did get injured. But circling back to the contract extension, I'm kind of with you. I think there's a lot more pressure and the time is ticking with Ivy just because the contract, and these are such crucial moments for him to play next to Cade Cunningham under JB Bickerstaff. And now you possibly have to wait till December to have those minutes. And then the trading deadline's in February. And then I think a lot of people are going to be speculative. What did the Detroit Pistons do? And I think it also depends on the standing, Sean. Like if they're not up to par with what the organization feels, those trade rumors might heat up a little bit. You might see, his name in more possible trade rumors because maybe the organization feels that they do need to look for another shooting guard. I'm not, again, that's just like logic thinking. If, you're not a top 5 seed and you're more of a play-in team, then Trajan and the Pistons have some very difficult decisions to make. But I've told you, I think Duren most likely gets a contract extension with the Pistons. Ivy, I think the injuries don't help his case, and there hasn't really been a whole lot of concrete evidence outside of the 30 games last season.
Yeah.
And 30 games is such a small sample size. It really is.
And there's no guarantee that once he comes back, that it just slots back to that level of production or goes upward. Like, there is no guarantees. And so for Ivy, again, it's just really unfortunate. You hope that he can come back in time to be able to, get in rhythm and to put some solid tape on the floor. But even just from like a trading standpoint, does this not kind of make it harder to trade him as well? Just from the standpoint of, if you're a team, like, is that as desirable of an asset right now as it was January 1 before the injury? Like unfortunately that does kind of change the value and like the risk reward of like what you're getting versus like what you're like, like what you're giving out. So I definitely don't think like, I don't want it to be like doom and gloom here. And like, I don't want us to like make it sound like Jaden Ivey's played his last game in a Pistons uniform, or this is like the death note on his career with the Pistons, because that's not the case. The reality is, and what we're really saying is, this is just another uphill battle that he has to face. And unfortunately, this doesn't silence the trade conversations like he probably hopes it would or hopes he
Yeah.
could.
I mean, if you're just looking at it, if he is a little bit of a step slow and, the Pistons aren't like a top 5, top 6 seed and they're struggling a little bit, those conversations get a lot louder from, national media. They get a lot louder from people in other organizations. I mean, I remember reading an athletic article from John Hollinger, and they only valued Jaden Ivey as 10 million a year for a contract extension, which is wild to think
Yeah.
about. And it's not because of the player that he is, it's just the
The
availability.
circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah, it like I said, him getting his leg just taken out from under him, it's not really his fault. The arthroscopic surgery, obviously he had issues with that in the training camp, but I'm rooting for him. I hope he does get extended. I hope both of these guys get extended. Um, you draft these guys, you fall in love with them, you get attached. Like I see Tom saying, if we end up trading anyone from this team, it might break me. You get so attached to these players when they get drafted. Like Cade Cunningham's going into his 5th year. Like him getting drafted seems like last week. Like the
Yeah.
years just go by so fast and you just get attached to these guys. But sometimes I have to remind myself, like, not everyone in this team's going to be here forever. The NBA is not that type of league.